Some people might say with the overabundance of remakes and remasters at present that gaming culture is stuck in a bit of a solipsistic feedback loop. Some less verbally guarded people might say the industry currently has its mouth sewn to its own butthole. It's hard to look at this stream of gussied up turn of the millennium games and think that much progress is being made on a broad scale. But hey, what does progress even mean right now? AI finally turning sentient and charging us $30 per token to politely ask it not to nuke the eastern seaboard? Maybe at a time when we're collectively standing with one foot in the air over a chasm full of polio-infected sharks? Progressing should be the furthest thing from our minds, and I suppose it is convenient for us gaming correspondents with conspicuous gaps in our experience to get a chance to play old classics that slipped us by in the first place without having to put up with suboptimal control schemes and graphics like a bunch of tangled together kites trying to escape from a default Windows desktop wallpaper. In a toilet. With that in mind, I played the new remake of Star Fox 64 on the Switch, partly for the above reasons, partly because it was only $50. Wow, that's the direction I want gaming to be going in, I cried aloud. Then, 15 minutes later, as the credits rolled, I added, actually, you know what, let's keep a finger on the previous page of the metaphorical choose-your-own-adventure book. Star Fox is a simplistic space shooter starring Fox McCloud, a mercenary space pilot in a war-torn galaxy of animal people, who leads a squadron of 4 fighters also named Star Fox, and if the other 3 members of the squadron have any objections to Fox McCloud naming their group after himself, they're rather conspicuously quiet about it, probably because they're all animals foxes have been known to eat, and they don't want McCloud to start weighing up the pros and cons of keeping them around. There's a toad named Mr. Toad, and a hare named Mr. Hare, and a falcon named Falco, because he was afraid of this shit turning into wind in the fucking willows. Where in the old 64 version these characters could only be relegated to dialogue portraits where everyone had weirdly fast talking animations that made them all look like a squirrel going to town on a hazelnut, the remake can now have full-on cutscenes with the entire cast depicted in their full realistic glory, although how much of an improvement that is depends on if you're bothered by arse-achingly realistically textured fur and feathers that make all the characters look like the work of an unmotivated taxidermist. Now, I never played Star Fox 64 back in the day. It was 1997. I was too busy masturbating and mourning the death of Princess Diana. Not at the same time, assuredly, but I took the liberty of watching a long play of the 64 version, if long play is still a word that applies, and the Switch 2 release seems like a pretty faithful recreation. One might slightly unkindly say the game is largely a rail shooter, with Star Fox and his chums flying a predetermined course through some kind of alien planet, blasting at parades of cannon fodder baddies, although you can brake and accelerate, so it's slightly better than a rail shooter in the sense that all VHS tapes are technically interactive movies if you make strategic use of the fast forward button. Some of the missions allow you to fly freely, but you still can't go above a certain height, and the action basically takes place on a fixed horizontal plane, and in these moments we gain appreciation for what it's like being a moth trying to escape from a candy floss machine. Basic gameplay has some annoyances. For one thing, when my ship's in the centre of the screen I can't see what it's shooting at. It's like having to fend off a needy child while you're trying to employ a urinal. I'm not a fan of the way you can only aim at what you're moving towards. Yes, it feels more arcadey, but I feel if this was being made today, you'd let us move with the left stick and aim with the right, in accordance with the holy scripture of Saint DualShock. I also wonder if my 3 squad mates have some kind of vor fetish and are actively trying to make Fox eat them. The number of times they get targeted by enemy ships while pissing about being useless, and act like I'm the asshole if I don't drop everything and rescue their dumbass, or indeed in Falco's case, if I happen to be present and breathing in and out. But I'm sure these views are of very little interest to those of you who do have nostalgia for Star Fox 64, so I will now direct a portion of this review to those people. Hello, former Nintendo gremlins. Gosh, weren't cartridges great? Games just haven't been the same since they stopped coming on physical formats that could conceivably derail a train. As I say, this is a pretty faithful remake, but I couldn't help noticing while watching the N64 version short play that the retro graphics were a lot easier to interpret without all the high-def lighting and fancy particles. It was much clearer which bits of the boss enemies were what you were supposed to shoot, and it was easier to tell my allies apart from the enemy ships, although that did have the disadvantage of reducing deniability. The extended cutscenes between missions in the remake do take the opportunity to flesh out the plot and characters a bit, but that has the unfortunate effect of making Fox McCloud come across as a bit of a massive git, which probably doesn't come as a surprise to the Smash Brothers players of the world, but nevertheless, in watching the 64 version cutscenes, I did think when General Pepper was going, Andross's forces have invaded Corneria, there was a bit of a hanging question mark over why this needed to be Fox McCloud's problem, but it's made clearer in the remake that Star Fox are freelance mercenaries and General Pepper's paying, because Fox makes it very clear at every opportunity that he's not going to lift his brush tail 1 fucking inch until Pepper's purse strings are spread open like your mum after bingo. Even during the ending sequence when Pepper's throwing out the red carpet and lavishing Star Fox with medals and praise, Fox is still rolling his eyes and hankering to get back to space murders, and I was watching it thinking, Fox, the guy's just trying to be nice. Have some decorum, you smirking orange twat. The enemies have to really put the work in to come across as less likeable than the protagonist, but you know what? They kind of pull it off. They're so operatically evil. They're like the officers on the Death Star all got shouted at by their wives that morning. None more so than the final boss, this giant floating head of Dr. Zaius motherfucker, who showed up after 7 brief missions to gloatingly inform me of the futility of my struggle, and then die in an embarrassingly small number of seconds, only to then in post-credits go, aha, you didn't kill me for realsies. So I played through the campaign again, making slightly different mission choices, fought a slightly different but still embarrassingly short boss fight. Don't worry, Andross, I'm sure this happens to lots of guys. After which he was like, okay, yes, alright, you killed me for realsies this time, stop hitting me. Roll credits. And while it is slightly crass to to bring up how short a game is for how much it costs. Lord knows I hate unnecessary padding, and it's not like games are fucking McNugget boxes where one might reasonably complain about getting a 6-piece instead of a 12. Star Fox was a meal that did not leave me full. I immediately started another playthrough to see if I could unlock the 1 or 2 alternate missions I hadn't seen yet, but kind of fucked that up and decided I wasn't so bored I could tolerate doing the first mission for the 4th fucking time, which rather reasserted my sense that I could never be a speedrunner. Oh well, suppose I'll just have to console myself with all my free time, healthy eating habits, and positive relationship with family members.
This video is brought to you by PlayTracker, the app that tracks your cross-platform game library, achievements, stats, friend activity, and more. Lately I've been pondering some of life's most difficult questions. Am I the person I want to be? What happens to our consciousness after we die? Do spiders have lungs? Just how much of my existence has been spent replaying From Software games? Luckily, PlayTracker is here to help us answer at least one of those questions, earn some free games, and potentially win $250. Step 1. Join Second Wind's PlayTracker Guild at the link below. Step 2. Play games recommended by the Second Wind staff to earn points. Step 3. Use those points to redeem a free game. Step 4. Profit. Like spiritually and monetarily. At the end of August, the person who has earned the most points will receive a $250 gift card to the game platform of their choice. Unite your gaming multiverse and be rewarded for it with PlayTracker today.